My body was already in the middle of bringing life into this world when my husband decided to remind me that, to him, I was never a person. I was property. And what I did next, in that hospital room, hooked up to monitors, contractions ripping through me every 4 minutes, changed everything. My marriage, my life, his freedom. Stay with me, because this story does not end the way you think it does. And by the time I'm done, you're going to understand exactly why I have zero regrets. But before I go any further, if this story hits you the way I think it's going to, please take a second right now to subscribe, like, and share this video. Only if it moves you. Only if you feel like someone else needs to hear this. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. My name is Diane, and I need you to understand who I was before that night, because the woman I became after it makes no sense without knowing how small I had made myself trying to keep my marriage alive. I grew up in a household where love was conditional. My mother stayed with a man who treated her like furniture, present, functional, invisible. So when I met Marcus at 24, and he was charming and attentive and said all the right things, I thought I had broken the cycle. I thought I had chosen differently. Marcus was the kind of man who could work a room. Broad smile, firm handshake, everyone's favorite guy at the barbecue. But behind our front door, he was someone else entirely. Not violent, not at first, just controlling. The kind of controlling that disguises itself as love for so long you don't even notice it happening. He didn't like my friends. One by one, the friendships quietly died because Marcus always had a reason. This one was a bad influence. That one was disrespectful. The other one was trying to come between us. I told myself he was just protective. He monitored my phone. I told myself he'd been cheated on before and needed reassurance. He controlled our finances, even though I worked full-time. I told myself he was better with money. You see the pattern. I had an excuse ready for every red flag, because the alternative, admitting what I had married, was too painful to face. Then I got pregnant, and something shifted in me. Not all at once, but slowly. As my body changed and I felt this life growing inside me, I started thinking, what kind of world am I bringing this child into? What am I modeling for her? We found out at 20 weeks we were having a girl. I remember lying in bed that night, looking at the ceiling, thinking, I don't want her to learn what I learned. I don't want her first lesson about love to be that you shrink yourself until there's nothing left. I started quietly making plans. A savings account he didn't know about, a folder on my phone with documents, a conversation with my sister I had avoided for 2 years because Marcus didn't like her. I wasn't ready to leave yet, but I was getting ready to be ready. I was 38 weeks when my blood pressure spiked at a routine appointment. My OB didn't hesitate. She sent me straight to labor and delivery. C-section scheduled for the following morning if things didn't stabilize. I was admitted that evening, scared, exhausted, and just trying to mentally prepare. Marcus came. He sat in the chair beside my bed, scrolling his phone, barely speaking. The nurses were kind. My contractions were irregular, but present. The monitor beside me tracked every heartbeat, mine and my daughter's. I was on IV fluids. I had a blood pressure cuff that auto-tightened every 30 minutes. I was as vulnerable as a human being can be. Around 11 at night, the ward went quiet. The hallway lights dimmed. The nurses completed their last round of checks. Marcus put his phone down, and the way he looked at me, I felt it before he even opened his mouth. That particular look I had learned to dread over 7 years. The one that meant he had decided something and my opinion on the matter was irrelevant. He started talking about how long it had been, how stressed he was, how he had needs, and he'd been more than patient. I told him I was in a hospital bed. I told him I was in labor. I told him I was terrified about surgery in the morning and my body was not mine right now. It belonged to the process of keeping our daughter alive. He didn't care. He moved his chair closer. He lowered his voice, not out of tenderness, but so the nurses at the station wouldn't hear. He told me I was overreacting, that it wasn't a big deal, that I always made things difficult. I said no, clearly, firmly. He reached for me anyway. I pulled back as far as the IV line and the monitor cables would allow. My blood pressure cuff tightened. The monitor flickered. I told him to stop. He told me to be quiet. His hands were on me, and I was tangled in tubes and wires, and I could not move the way a person needs to move to get away, and he knew it. I could see in his face that he knew it, and he did not care. That was the moment something broke open inside me, not in defeat, in rage. I screamed. Not a cry, not a whimper. I screamed from the bottom of my lungs with every bit of oxygen I had, the kind of scream that cuts through walls and closed doors and the quiet hum of a hospital at midnight. The door flew open in seconds. 2 nurses came through first, then the charge nurse, then a nursing assistant who had been doing rounds down the hall. They took in the scene instantly. Me pressed against the headboard, trembling, tears streaming, monitor alarming, and Marcus standing over me with guilt written across every inch of his face, trying to arrange it into something innocent. It didn't work. The charge nurse, a woman named Beverly, and I will never forget her name, stepped between us without a single second of hesitation. She looked at Marcus and said, with a calm that was somehow more frightening than shouting, "Sir, you need to step back, right now." Marcus tried the smile. He actually tried it. He started to say something about his wife being emotional, about pregnancy hormones, about a misunderstanding. Beverly did not blink. She told him again to step back. He didn't move fast enough. He put his hand on her arm to move her aside. That was his last mistake in that room. What happened next took maybe 45 seconds. The nursing assistant grabbed the emergency call cord. 2 more staff members appeared from the hallway. Marcus, who had always operated in spaces where charm and size protected him, suddenly found himself surrounded by people who were not impressed by either. He raised his voice. He tried to push his way toward the door. In the chaos of him resisting, of staff physically blocking him and trying to restrain him, he went down. He hit the floor hard. He was held there, face down, until security arrived less than 2 minutes later. I watched all of this from my hospital bed, still hooked to my monitors, my daughter's heartbeat still steady on the screen, and I felt nothing for him. Not pity, not guilt, nothing. Security detained him in the hallway. Beverly came back to my side, checked my vitals, and asked me quietly if I wanted to tell her what happened. I told her everything. Within the hour, Beverly had connected me with the hospital's patient advocate and a social worker. I gave a full statement, everything that happened that night, and enough of the 7 years before it that there was context. The hospital documented everything, the monitor readings, the timestamps, the physical state they found me in, the staff witness accounts. The police were called. 2 officers arrived. I gave my statement again, this time formally, with the patient advocate beside me holding my hand. When the officers walked past my window to the hallway where Marcus was being held, I watched his face change. The confidence drained out of him in real time. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. He looked at me through that window, and for once in 7 years, he had nothing to say. He was placed under arrest that night for sexual assault in the 1st degree. In our state, that charge carries a mandatory minimum of 10 years and can go up to 30 depending on circumstances, prior conduct, and what a jury decides. The prosecutors, once they reviewed the hospital documentation and witness statements, did not offer a plea. They went to trial. Marcus spent the months between his arrest and trial in county jail on remand. Bail was set high. The combination of the charge, the witness list, and the documented evidence made him a poor candidate for release. His family scrambled. His mother called me 6 times before I changed my number. His brother showed up at my sister's house. None of it moved me. Inside, Marcus was not doing well. I learned later, through the trial process, through testimony, that he had dropped significant weight, that he had gotten into altercations, that the man who had always controlled every room he walked into was completely powerless in the one he was now living in, and it was destroying him. He fired his first attorney. His second attorney quit. His third attorney tried to build a defense on consent, on marital confusion, on my emotional state during labor. The nurses testified. Beverly testified. The monitor records were entered into evidence. They showed the spike in my vitals consistent with the timeline of what I reported. The physical findings documented by my medical team that night were entered into evidence. The jury was out for less than 4 hours. Guilty. First-degree sexual assault. The judge, at sentencing, did not mince words. He noted the deliberate nature of the act, the vulnerability of the victim, the setting, the calculated attempt to use isolation and her physical state against her. Marcus was sentenced to 22 years, with no possibility of parole for the first 15. He stood at that podium, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I saw him cry. Real tears. The kind that come when a person finally understands that the consequences are real and permanent, and no amount of charm is going to move them. I felt no satisfaction in his tears. I want to be honest about that. What I felt was finished, like a door closing on a room I never had to enter again. If you're still here with me, thank you. Drop a comment below and tell me what moment in this story hit you the hardest. And if you know someone who needs to hear that it is possible to find your line and hold it even at your most vulnerable, please share this video right now. Let me finish the story. My daughter was born at 6:42 the morning after Marcus's arrest. My blood pressure had stabilized through the night. I think my body finally exhaled after years of holding tension it had no name for. My OB cleared me for a monitored vaginal delivery. I was alone in that room when she arrived. No husband, no in-laws, just me, my medical team, and my sister who had driven through the night the moment I called her. I held my daughter and I made her a promise. Not out loud, but she heard it. I promised her she would never watch me disappear for anyone, not ever again. The divorce was filed within weeks. The folder on my phone, the documents, the account, the evidence I had been quietly building for months without fully knowing why, became the foundation of a clean exit. Everything Marcus thought he controlled, I had already begun to document. Getting ready to be ready had saved me. Here's what I need to leave you with. The most dangerous thing Marcus ever did to me wasn't that night in the hospital. It was the 7 years before it, slowly, consistently teaching me that my needs didn't matter, that my discomfort was overreaction, that my no was negotiable. Abuse doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives wearing patience, wearing charm, wearing the face of someone who calls it love while they're taking you apart piece by piece. But here is what I also know. Something in me was already fighting back before I had the words for it. That folder, that account, that quiet, stubborn preparation. Some part of me knew long before my mind was ready to admit it. So if you are reading this and something in your home doesn't feel right, if you are constantly managing someone's moods, constantly editing yourself, constantly explaining away things that hurt you, start your folder, literally or metaphorically. Start getting ready to be ready. Because when clarity arrives, and it will, you deserve to have something to reach for. You are not too far in. You are not too broken. You are not alone. And your no has always been enough. If Diane's story moved you, please subscribe to this channel right now. Every week I bring you stories about real people who found their strength in the darkest moments, and I don't want you to miss a single one. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it tonight, and drop a comment. Tell me the moment that hit you hardest. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next story.